So this is the best mods for your money for the Focus ST Stage 3. So once you've done Stage 1 and Stage 2, now time to move on for Stage 3. This doesn't have to be in any specific order, and honestly, your list might look different than mine, but this is what I have came up with for the best mods for your money. And how I done that was basically for the past 11.5 years of owning this car right here, I've collected enough data to realize these would be the best bang for your buck mods for the Focus ST. When you go to mod, you're not going to be buying like 3 times, like say you want to get an intercooler, or you get different spark plugs, and there's different things. Like a lot of people buy multiple times like I have, and it's a test and trial error type of thing. So on Stage 3, number 1, I wouldn't consider big turbo now. I have it listed as number 1, but we should skip that and move on to number 2, because big turbo doesn't consider yourself Stage 3. I'd say that's actually more of a Stage 3 plus mod. So we'll move on to number 2 for now. Say an exhaust is only needed when you need Stage 3 bolt-ons, like when there's nothing left. An exhaust is good as far as more flow, especially for a bigger turbo when you do that. And it's not needed for the stock turbo. The downpipe is more beneficial to the stock turbo than an exhaust would be for flow wise, because the stock turbo can't flow that well anyways. So now, as far as what exhaust I recommend, I would highly recommend the MBRP, or you could also run the AWE track exhaust. That's a really nice setup, stainless steel. I have the MBRP exhaust. So this is my exhaust setup. These are 4.5-inch tips from the MBRP, but you can kind of see it. So this is a 3-inch exhaust, and what I've done is muffler and resonator switched out, and I put a vibrant muffler and resonator in there, so it's actually a little bit toned down. It's probably one of the quietest 3-inch exhausts you can actually run. That's aftermarket for this car. So I love the sound of it though. It has a really nice bassy sound. It's toned back a little bit from the MBRP. The MBRP is not raspy. I highly recommend that overall. Next on the list, this could be kind of, this is what I put. So number 3, coolant. Now I highly suggest this coolant right here. This is the red pink Asian coolant. Now you're wondering, well, we don't have an Asian vehicle. Well, that's true, but this is way better than the orange Dex Cool that we have in our cars. For one, it doesn't have the 2-EHA inhibitor, which is in 90% of all coolants. And you're wondering, okay, well, what's that? Well, Google it, and it'll even tell you on there. It talks about 2-EHA. Now you can see this doesn't have it, because it'll tell you. But when you go to look on this label here, the ingredients, go to Walmart and you can see was it the Prestone? Prestone has it. All Prestone products have it. Like I said, all the cheap ones have it. And Peak does not, unless you have the orange one. So just completely flush out your coolant, and then you can run this or the heavy duty. There's another one, there's Peak Global, and it's just like a more universal one, and that's like a lifetime fluid. It doesn't go bad at all, as far as, I think they rate it for like 1 million miles. It's insane. So it's probably 10 years, 1 million miles. So 2-EHA, the inhibitor, it's really bad because it eats at your silicone piping or gaskets, your rubber gaskets, and it does it over time slowly. It's like think of it like you're smoking cigarettes. You know, you're smoking 2.5, 3 packs a day. It's going to cause damage over time. Now, you may never notice the damage, but why not just spend the money on getting a better coolant overall for your car if you've bought all these other mods that cost 100 times more. A gallon of this stuff is literally like $18-20 at Walmart, so it's really easy to get, and it also helps with longevity overall. It could definitely prevent your cylinder head from cracking because of the better dissipation heat as well. And so $18-20, can't beat it. So next on the list, I'd highly recommend, and this is the only time I'd recommend it, is when you want to go full stage 3 bolt-ons, is the exhaust and then the intake kit. So this is like a full intake kit, not just a drop-in air filter. So when you go to do this, the only time you really want to do this is when you go big turbo, or when you plan to do big turbo, just like the exhaust. And otherwise, I wouldn't recommend doing a full intake kit for the stock turbo, just because you're not going to gain anything out of it. You're not going to gain nothing. All you're gaining is maybe a little bit more intake noise, but you're going to get the intake noise from the drop-in air filter, especially if it's like an open-ended one or the top is off, like the RS style top, or this. I highly recommend running the stock airbox. You can run the RS top. You can get one of those on eBay, and also an AEM dry filter that drops right in. And when you want to go do the kit, I'd recommend the FS Works intake tube, or any intake tube that isn't priced like out of this world. And if you like carbon fiber, Kaba I think still offers their carbon fiber tube. When you've done everything else and you've got stage 3 bolt-ons or full bolt-ons, then the next thing you will need to do is a big turbo if you want to go over 300 wheel horsepower, and that's the most efficient way. Now, there's a bunch of big turbo kits out there. There's B&R, and there's Pulsar turbos. There's also the most common Garrett turbo ATP kits. And then it's hard to come by probably now, but they have the EFR Borg-Warner kits. Now this manifold here didn't come with it. I had this one specifically made for the RS, but the elbows, they have their own downpipe and everything, but the EFRs are probably top of the list as far as spool and longevity goes overall, but they're the most expensive kits you can probably buy other than the CPE kits. Now, if you have a ATP kit already, you need to change out the fire ring gasket ASAP and get the triple layer. Ford actually revised these gaskets, and they did this quietly. They knew that the heads were cracking and they needed to fix the issue, so they went with a triple layer. They used to be a single layer, and I used to have my single layer one when I took it off. This is the new revised version. It's coated in black, but I got the copper sprayed on there. But this is a triple layer gasket, and the reason they did that is for better heat dissipation on the cylinder head. The single layer gaskets were causing head cracking, and there wasn't as much dissipation for the heat on the manifold, so this would alleviate a lot of that. And I'll actually show you the cylinder head I have over here. Here's one that had ATP, and you can clearly see, and you can actually feel this. It's insane. Like, watch this. Listen to this. Hey, watch this. It's insane. I can take my nail and just, you can feel it etched right into the aluminum. It's crazy. So the biggest reason you'd want to go big turbo for the Focus ST is you'd want to, obviously increase your capability and horsepower. But you're also going to get a lot of benefits. And I kind of wrote everything down here. So you're going to have, obviously, you gain more power. Now, the most reliability for a stock engine, I believe, is 300, 350, 360 wheel horsepower. Now, you're also, believe it or not, you're going to get better gas mileage. And the reason is because it's more efficient and it's not creating as much heat. It's not like a hairdryer, and it doesn't spool as quickly. And the charge temps aren't as hot, and it just allows it to run overall better. And that's why it also makes your intercooler run more efficient as well, if you think about it, because your intercooler doesn't have to work as hard if your charge temps aren't as hot coming from the turbo. Another big thing is less back pressure creates less heat, which also equals reliability for your cylinder head. You know, cooler charge temps, huge for longevity overall. Another thing is a stock turbo is harder on the stock rods. So you're going to get a broader curve with a big turbo. This is the example I want to show for the curve. And you can see like the torque that you produce in the KO3 is really not good for OEM rods because it's so dramatic. And it just puts so much stress on the rods. And you can see about 4,500 the stock turbo drops off, okay? And that's for every KO3 that does that. And now you could make this more broader if you had, say, you know, upgraded internal wastegate like that right there, the IWG 75. You know, that can make this a little bit better, but you're still going to drop really hard on the torque for the stock turbo. So now let's compare that to a big turbo. This is the comparison here. So this is a 361 wheel horsepower, 362 foot-pounds of torque, perfect tune. This is maxed out on 93 at sea level for the 7163 EFR, but look at this. So I'm reaching that much torque at 4,372 RPM. And now it's about, let's see here. So it's about 2,500 there, probably 2,600. Now, you say it's a big difference, but it's not that much of a difference. There's some lag, but it's not bad, especially for the EFR turbo. Now, if you see this dotted line, look at this torque. Now, granted, this is with stage 2 exhaust cam and OEM intake cam, but see how this flat lines? Now, if you had OEM cams, this would be a little bit lower, like that probably. It would drop more, but with cams, this flattens out better on the torque side of things. So the horsepower just keeps climbing. So with the big turbo, your torque curve is broader and later, and that prevents your rods from, you know, blowing out basically, and there's not as much stress or torque put on them right off. You want this torque curve to be shifted to the right more to allow for more longevity. Now, obviously, if you are pushing over 400 wheel, you're putting your rods on more stress anyway. You know, especially with a high torque, say you're 450 torque or something, you're bound to blow a rod out anyways. This power level here, you won't. If you have a Focus RS, you're definitely going to want to go bigger turbo just because it's a stroker engine. But yeah, so that's the comparison. You know, big turbo just shifts this to the right. And the way I can explain it is the big turbo allows, I mean, it is the feeling that you get is like when I first experienced it, it feels like it's a freight train. Like what I mean by that, and it just, the way it pulls, it pulls harder. Even on a base map, it pulls harder than stock turbo because torque curve doesn't drop like this, like a cliff. It's more broader. So it just feels better overall, and it's better for your engine, especially when you're around this power range here. So let's see, cooler charge temps for sure. less back pressure, more power. And when you go big turbo, you want to make sure you get a big enough turbo for your horsepower goals. Like say you plan to build the engine, you want to have a big enough turbo to run and not max out right off. And the most common turbo to get is a GTX Gen 2 2867. That's the most popular turbo in the ATP kits. And, obviously it doesn't have to be in this order like I've mentioned. But, I've seen some people mentioning, well, how about balance shaft delete? Absolutely, I recommend a balance shaft delete. I would probably put that in for number 3 if you don't want to change your coolant and you are gun-ho about the Ford OEM coolant and think it's superior to, what I recommend. That's your choice. You could definitely do the balance shaft delete, but I'm not going to talk about the balance shaft delete because that's going to be on stage 3 plus episode. And so hopefully you enjoyed. Kind of rambled on a little bit here, but these longer videos provide the most information compared to the shorts, and it's more of a just me providing my knowledge to you guys, and hopefully it helps most of you guys on deciding which mods to run and at what time or order you should run them to save you money overall, and also it helps you on longevity of your car and overall just having more fun, and that's obviously what it's about. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching the channel. I appreciate everything, and we've passed 100 subscribers. Thank you very much. And this is Stage 3 mods for your Focus ST.